Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we have two really good frustrated players out there, one for the Carolina Panthers, the other for the Cleveland Browns, who we just beat. Should the Washington Commanders go ahead and trade for them? We have some news sources saying that we definitely should. Is that on the way? Also, the Eagles just released linebacker Devon White. Should we potentially look at him as well? We're going to do a full dive, at least into Jaycee and Amari Cooper. We're going to talk about Devon White just a little bit at the end, but should we go make these trades for these guys? Are trades in the work already? Are we going to be sellers instead of buyers at the trade deadline now that we've gotten off to a way better start this season than we expected? Before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. I'm working on getting 2 videos a day out to y'all just for everybody. Then on top of that, some exclusive film sessions that are only available to channel members, so make sure you stay tuned for those throughout the week. Trying to get at least like 2 to 3 done before we end up playing the Ravens. Speaking of the Ravens, I will be live streaming that game in full, all 4 quarters, starting like 30 minutes before the stream. And of course, if we win, a call-in show immediately to end the stream right after the game stops. And make sure you stay tuned for that play-by-play analysis, breakdowns, all of that type of stuff live for y'all. So make sure y'all pull up for that, of course. And without further ado, let's go and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, let's talk about Jaycee first, the cornerback for the Carolina Panthers. I'm not going to lie, though. I'm not going to lie. First of all, I've been saying this for at least over a week now. I've been saying this all week, but I can also admit that I am biased here because Jaycee is from Atlanta, and I've been watching him since he was in high school all the way through college, and then I wanted us to draft him in the draft as well, but he ended up going like 8th overall, so we were never in range to get him with our circumstances in that draft. But y'all know how deep I am in the trenches when it comes to this recruiting thing, man. I mean, like, watch out for LaDainian Guyton right now. He'll be a freshman in college in 2027. Probably end up getting drafted by like 2030, 2031. Don't say I didn't warn you. Just make sure you keep tabs on this for way later years down the line. But my point is, I've been watching Jaycee since high school, so I would love for him to finally land on the Washington Commanders, and I feel like we also could use his services. I feel like he would make us a better team. Of course, we're going to talk about that, but we got to talk about why we should get him in the first place, like how good is he and all of that type of stuff. But again, I've been talking about trading for this guy for the past couple of weeks now. Now you have Cody Benjamin of CBS Sports. He wrote an article, the 2024 trade deadline. 1 deal each team should make, including the Jets, Commanders, Eagles, blockbuster. So basically he emphasized that the Jets, Commanders, and Eagles could potentially end up making the biggest trades that rock the nation. And he does one for all 32 NFL teams. For us, of course, we have cornerback Jaycee from the Carolina Panthers. He said Commanders executive Scott Fitterer drafted Horn early in Carolina. I forgot that he is a part of our organization. He used to be their GM. Now he's just part of our front office. It's just like an advisor, technically like an executive. The Panthers like him, but he'll likely command top dollar. Despite a checkered medical history, this splash would aid Washington's secondary. And that is a good point. This is a guy that is healthy, stays unhealthy quite a bit. He has not been available like entire seasons. You know, he misses games. And so this is a guy that if you're willing to pay him big money, and if you're willing to trade for him, just be aware of the fact that this is not a guy that typically stays very healthy. But at the same time, on the Panthers end, just for that exact reason, with the fact that he can't stay healthy and they're already in like a rebuild stage, why not go ahead and recoup some of those resources and capital that you lost from drafting him in the first round? Why don't you try to scrape up whatever you can possibly get for him in a trade before he walks away in free agency in a few years anyway? But Jaycee remember, coming out of college, was an elite prospect. I mean, if we're just talking about athleticism alone, when you're looking at his relative athletic score, he had a 9.99, y'all. That's second for like up to the 2021 draft. That was second out of 1,784 cornerbacks drafted since 1987. Second out of 1,784 corners drafted since 1987, again up to 2021 when Jaycee was drafted. That is insane stuff. Again, a 9.99 out of 10. His composite size grade was elite. with him being nearly 6'1" and also weighing 205 pounds, and he had a bench of 19, so he's strong, that's really strong for a corner. Then his explosion grade was elite. He had a vertical of 41.5 and a broad jump of 1,101, all elite stuff. Then his speed was great as well. He ran a 4.4 flat in the 40-yard dash. His 20-yard split was decent with a 2.6, but then his 10 split was also really good with a 1.55. He didn't do any of the agility drills at the combine, but he didn't need to. That was elite stuff right there. And you can see on the tape that he's a very agile guy, a guy that can change directions. And again, coming out of Atlanta from high school, then coming out of South Carolina in college, he was drafted 8th overall in the first round by the Carolina Panthers. Are they willing to cut ties with a guy that they drafted that high just a couple of years later? We'll see. New GM, new everything. Maybe he doesn't want to put up with it. He already seems like he wants to move on from Bryce Young. They may be willing to move on from a player that they drafted even before they took Bryce Young, which is why, I'm not going to lie, they may not let him go for anything less than more than what Adam Peters is probably willing to give up for him. Like, whatever price they're asking for, that may be higher than what Adam Peters is willing to give up to get the guy. Just to let you know, there may be like a chasm right there. But then again, this guy, Jaycee Horn, has not been good this season, Pro Football Focus wise. And also, when you watch the tape, he has not been as good as he's typically been. Like, his best season was in 2023 by far, where he had an 84.1 overall grade. This season so far, he has the worst grade of his career with a 65.6, which still isn't like terrible. We're going to take a look at all of the other corners that we have on our team right now between Benjamin St-Juste, Noah Benogany, and Mike Sanverstill that have played enough snaps to even get graded by Pro Football Focus, because Emmanuel Forbes hasn't. And even his worst year is better than either of these guys' grades right now this year. We're going to get to that. But my point is, right now, he's off to like a sort of bad season. And I feel like it's a lot of frustration tied into that. I feel like it's a lot of just non-belief in the defensive system. And he's probably just waiting for the right defensive coaching staff, right defensive scheme, the right team to go back to his 2023 self. But again, right now, he has a 65.6 overall grade so far through 5 games this season. His highest grade right now is his run defense with a 70.3. His tackling is his worst grade with a 48.6. His pass rush is a 58.4. And his coverage grade isn't bad. It's right there, right at his overall grade with a 65.5. But again, just to go back to 2023, when he had his best season, and I want to emphasize this because when you have a defensive staff like we have with Dan Quinn, Joe Wood Jr., and all of these guys, we bring in Jason Simmons to be our defensive passing game coordinator for the Raiders and all of the DBs he developed over there. You could kind of safely assume that this is the type of coaching staff that can get the best out of Jaycee Horn and return him back to his best form. So when he was at his best last year, he had an 84.1 overall grade, a 79.7 run defense grade, and an 83 coverage grade, which if he had that grade this year, according to Pro Football Focus, he would be the 3rd best corner in the entire NFL, only behind DJ Reed of the New York Jets and Zion McCollum of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if he were playing at the level that he did last year, but this year, he would be the 3rd best corner in the entire NFL right now. And then even just, that's overall grade. How about coverage-wise specifically? If he played like he did last year in coverage, this year, he would be the 6th highest graded coverage corner in the entire NFL, according to Pro Football Focus right now. And so in comparison to our corners this season, just to let you know, Benjamin St-Juste has a 58.7 overall grade, Noah Benogany has a 56.6, and Mike Sanverstill has a 55.4. Again, even on his worst day, his worst year, he still had a grade of a 65.6 this season, which is still 10 overall points in a grading system better than our best corner right now. But again, if you go back to his 2023 season, he had an 84.1 grade, which would make him the 3rd best corner in the entire NFL right now. And frustrations are running high for him. He's playing worse, I feel like, because of frustrations, also just because there's not a lot of talent around him. I mean, Jeremy Chin and Frankie Louvu left him. You see how impactful they've been for our defense. Imagine being a corner for the Panthers after those guys leave, and now it's harder on everybody else around you. Plus, you have all kinds of injuries everywhere. Their Pro Bowl defensive lineman is hurt. I believe one of their starting linebackers just got hurt for the season as well. Like, it's just going downhill for the Panthers right now, and Jaycee Horn is obviously frustrated. He just got ejected after a fight following the Bears, I think, final touchdown of the game. Game completely out of hand, already losing by 20 plus points late in the fourth quarter. He got ejected out of frustration. Now, granted, in the locker room after the game, I think it was yesterday, so after the game, they interviewed him and asked him what happened. He said his ejection had nothing to do with frustration of the game or the season, just extra contact after the play. He said before this video that he just lost his poise. And first of all, I just don't believe that. I really don't. He's just saying that for the cameras. He's being politically correct. And overall, honestly, the entire Panthers team is just frustrated. Like, it's not even just Jaycee Horn. I mean, they benched Bryce Young when they were already giving up on the season. They looked like they were aiming for the #1 pick in the draft, and they were pretty much tanking. Then Andy Dalton stepped in and gave them a little bit of hope with a really good win over the sorry little Raiders. A convincing win, honestly. And then they went right back to despair and frustration after a 24-34 loss to the Bengals, and then especially after this most recent 10-36 loss to Chicago just 2 days ago. I mean, that was the one where it was like, yeah, it's time to pull the plug. Like, you beat the Raiders, okay. You lose to I think a better Bengals team than they've been given credit for, especially with the way that they just played against the Ravens, and I feel like we deserve more credit for how we beat them compared to how the Ravens beat them, but that's a whole nother discussion for another day before we do my preview video for that Ravens game coming up. But either way, my point is, beat the Raiders, not a good team, but you still won. I mean, you're not the worst team in the NFL, huh? And then you lose to the Bengals by 10 points, which is not that bad. Again, I feel like the Bengals aren't that bad of a team, but then you go and lose to the Bears that way. I think it may be just time to go ahead and pull the plug, tank, and get whatever capital and resources you can get in return for good players that don't want to be there anymore. And I feel like Jaycee Horn is one of those prime players right now, because the Panthers may be in big time seller mode before the trade deadline. And Adam Peters was part of the 49ers finesse of the Panthers, catching them lacking while they were in sell mode, rebuild mode, and was able to pull away Christian McCaffrey in a trade. Maybe Adam Peters can finesse them again. I mean, look at it from Jaycee Horn's side. If I'm a great corner, an explosive offense that is literally destined, it seems like, to score almost every possession they step onto the field would be a heavenly landing spot for me, man, especially when our trajectory is on the up and up, and he would feel like he's going from a tanking franchise to a future Super Bowl contender that has a franchise quarterback. From last in the NFC South division to first in the NFC East division, why wouldn't he want to come here? So it may not even necessarily be up to him. I'm pretty sure if it were up to him, he would love to join the Commanders. I mean, if he really, really wants to come here, he could request a trade. He could even go as far as to demand a trade, but I think he's going to keep it politically correct and just chill. I wouldn't be surprised if he's selling the Panthers behind the scenes, man. Please send me over there. Since CBS is bringing it up in an article, since StreetScores is talking about it, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully he sees this. Just go ahead and trade me over there, man. It's a good idea. I didn't even think about it myself, me talking from Jaycee Horn's side. But now that the ideas come up, let's make that happen. And then on top of that, like I just briefly mentioned earlier, he would also be joining his dogs and Jeremy Chin and Frankie Louvu, who were just in Carolina with him last year. They would make his transition from Carolina to the DMV so easy, on the field and off the field. He would already have two guys that he fully trusts in the locker room and on the field, and they could pretty much serve as like a great medium between Jaycee Horn and not only the other players on the team, the locker room and things like that, but also our coaching, our defensive coaches as well, and teaching them, like, you know, this is how Dan Quinn and Joey Jr. wants to do things, but also telling Joey Jr. and Dan Quinn in a way that they would understand this is how Jaycee Horn wants to do things. So if you ask me, if there's any chance of Jaycee Horn getting traded, I honestly feel like the Washington Commanders honestly do make the most sense. I feel like really the only problem to me right now is whether or not the Panthers are willing to trade him. But if they are, I wouldn't be surprised if we're the #1 candidate up there. But again, the price matters a lot. I mean, honestly though, because even from our side, because to me, if we could just move everybody in our cornerback room, and I've said this a few times already the past couple of weeks, but if you take everybody in our cornerback room and just move them down one spot on the depth chart, I believe we're cooking with fish grease over here. To be honest, I love St. Juice, but he should be on the other team's second best wide receiver, or at, you know, maybe at best the bigger receivers, because he's the 6'3" guy with really long arms. And then I'm loving the development of Mike Sanders still. I mean, I would say that game against the Browns probably his best game yet. But I feel like even though he's played well outside too, I feel like his ceiling is at his highest as slot corner. And while I feel like he can be a really good outside corner, I feel like he has the potential to be the best slot corner in the entire NFL within a year or two. So bringing over Jaycee Horn Horn is your outside corner, Benjamin St. Juste is your corner too, and then now moving Mike Sanford from outside, what he's been playing most of the time the past couple of weeks, back to the slot. I feel like that's a great cornerback group, arguably like one of the better cornerback groups in the NFL, especially as Mike Sanford still continues to get better. And then Noah Igbinoghene off the bench is great depth. He's been solid as a constant contributor, a strong contributor, not necessarily like technically a starter, but he's playing almost starting level snaps, and he's been playing pretty well overall. And so then you, at that point, I guess you just find a way to keep Forbes in the mix and keep him involved here and there. But I mean, that cornerback group, you add Jaycee Horn and everybody else moves down the depth chart one spot. That's a great cornerback group that I can believe in. I really do. And I'm not gonna lie, I do believe in if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And our defense is definitely on an upward trajectory and improving by the week. But unlike Devontae Adams potentially coming here and ruining not only the offense, like chemistry and everything, but the culture of the team, locker room, and, you know, being selfish compared to Terry McLaurin, who's very selfless, I feel like Jaycee Horn could only help. I mean, you can never have too many good corners. And with the season Jaycee Horn is having right now, he may go for cheaper than what we think. Maybe. Like, imagine using the third we got for Jahan Dotson and flipping it to Jaycee Horn. Like, imagine trading a receiver that never gets the ball to end up getting one of the best corners in the NFL. I mean, that's essentially what would have happened. If we could somehow flip that third we got from Jahan to go get Jaycee Horn from the Panthers, that would be trading Jahan Dotson for Jaycee Horn, and you could have never have told me that we could have pulled something like that off just a few months ago. Now let's move on, because again, I'm just going to go ahead and let you know right now, if Jaycee Horn is available, I'm giving the thumbs up. Please go get him. Now moving on to Amari Cooper, should we trade for him? There is apparently a rumor going around that the Browns are expected to trade disgruntled wide receiver Amari Cooper before the November 5th trade deadline. The team is apparently looking for a third-round pick. Hey, we have two of those. We have our own, and we have the one that we got from the Eagles. I think it's technically the Miami Dolphins one. So if the Dolphins keep losing, that third-round pick keeps getting better and better. So we have technically the Dolphins third-round pick through the Eagles in our own. Let's give one away for Jaycee Horn. Let's give the other one away for Amari Cooper. How about that? And now, do people believe that we're Super Bowl contenders? Maybe so. And I honestly feel like, even though we're about to talk about Amari Cooper, I feel like we need to trade for corner before we trade for wide receiver. But at the same time, if all Cleveland wants is a third-round pick for Amari Cooper, you'll see how much cap space he's taking up right now, how cheap he is, and also the fact that he's younger than Devontae Adams. Some people may not necessarily notice that he's younger than Devontae Adams. This could be a guy, and I'm not gonna lie, Deshaun Watson was terrible. When you really go back and look at the All-22, Amari Cooper was open quite a bit that game. He got open a few times, and Deshaun Watson either just didn't see him or missed him. So this is still a really good receiver right here. We're gonna get to that though, just wait. But you have an article from USA Today written by Chris Bumbaka. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. I hope I got it right. But either way, he said the word frustrated, including its former forms of frustration and frustrating, came out of Amari Cooper's mouth at least 5 times following the Cleveland Browns 34-13 loss Sunday to the Washington Commanders. He said, quote, "It's always frustrating to lose. To lose in the fashion we did is even more frustrating. So, hey, just got to go back to the drawing board, continue to improve, and turn this thing around," unquote. Continuing with the article, for the 5th time this season, the Browns offense failed to reach at least 20 points. The unit went nearly 53 minutes without scoring a touchdown. They only scored it in garbage time once we started to rest our starters. Jaden Daniels already was off the field for an entire possession or two before they even scored that touchdown. But it is what it is. Cooper had the longest catch of the day, a 19-yard connection on the first play of the second quarter. Cooper finished with 4 catches for 60 receiving yards and was targeted 10 times. From the start of the game, the receiver and quarterback Deshaun Watson didn't appear on the same page. Watson looked to him on a deep post route on the 3rd play of the game, but the pass landed harmlessly for an incompletion, and then the 2 tried for another deep shot from the Browns' own end zone, but after Watson's toss sailed over Cooper's head with 0 chance of completion, I mean a complete overthrow, and Cooper had everybody beat. Like, if Deshaun Watson's a better quarterback, that's probably like an 80-90 yard touchdown. The wideout walked off looking dejected, just absolutely sick of it. Later in the first half, Cooper couldn't catch up on Watson's throw that led him to the sideline on an intermediate out route, and he said, quote, "If I had all the answers, it would be happening, so I really can't adequately answer that right now," unquote. So, and the article keeps going on and on, but my point is, if you think Jaycee Horn is frustrated, imagine how frustrated Amari Cooper is right now. He probably wants out big time. And so, on top of that, you have Justin Mello of the Draft Network. He just conjured up an article just yesterday. October 7th, saying the top 3 teams that should trade for Amari Cooper. He said the Kansas City Chiefs, the Detroit Lions, and also, of course, yours truly, the Washington Commanders. He said in 2 short paragraphs, Cooper received a front row seat on Sunday to Washington's dominance. Rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels was once again outstanding, completing 14 passes while accounting for 320 total yards of offense and a touchdown. Daniels dominated a usually stout Browns defense, improving Washington's record to an NFC East lead in 4-1. Commanders general manager Adam Peters should take advantage of this record and Daniels' rookie contract at the NFL trade deadline. That is a great point to make. While Jayden Daniels is still getting paid rookie quarterback money, we may want to go ahead and dive into this because your Super Bowl window is at its widest, at its greatest chance when your quarterback, you have an elite quarterback playing at a top 10, top 5 quarterback level like Jayden Daniels is, but he's still only getting pennies because he's still in his rookie contract, and that allows you so much more capital and money to make sure the team around said quarterback is great. Do we just go ahead and expedite the process? We go ahead and kick this up into another gear sooner than we believe. I was assuming maybe like in a year or two we'd be in this mode, but at 4-1, definitively leading the division by at least a game over everybody else in the NFC East, is it time to just go ahead and dive in now? Make these trades now, make us a better team now, and then we still have the draft. We still have a whole nother free agency period, but let's see what we can do in 2024 right now. Continuing with the point, Commanders general manager Adam Peters should take advantage of his record and Daniels' rookie contract at the NFL trade deadline. Peters should be aggressive while Daniels remains on his cost control deal. They currently possess nearly $26 million in effective cap space according to Over the Cap, which is like top 5 in the NFL right now, top 7. Washington doesn't have many proven pass catching weapons outside of Terry McLaurin. Acquiring Cooper would signal continued investment in their rookie quarterbacks in season development right now. Also, again, just to remind you, all of this makes a lot of sense on his end, why he would want to come to the Commanders, but how about on our end? Well, yeah, man, because this guy was breaking off our very own corners. Again, this guy was open quite a bit. Like, if you look at the all 22, you're like, thank goodness Deshaun Watson sucks and that offensive line sucks, because our secondary, yeah, they played better against the Browns, but that's a mix of they played better and also the Browns are terrible, because again, Amari Cooper was open a lot that game and still didn't get the ball. Shouts out to @JDanielsMVP. Like I mentioned earlier, he brings up a couple of good points that I thought of, but I completely agree with his statement. I want to read it word for word because I completely agree. He said, I can see the Commanders pursuing wide receiver Amari Cooper by the trade deadline. His contract is very manageable as the cap hit is only $8.7 million. We're going to talk about that very soon. And he's younger than Devontae Adams. I really want to emphasize that. Also, adding another 1,000-yard receiver in the mix with Terry McLaurin for cheap would not be a bad idea, especially if they're saying that he's only going for a 3rd-round pick. But right now, he's only making, he's a less than $9 million cap hit, and we can clearly afford that with still $16 million extra even after you trade for him, just to let you know. The only problem is this is the last year of his contract, and right now Spot Track estimates his market value to be $22.1 million per year after this season. So you'll basically have to go ahead and be ready to get that long-term contract done, because you're not trading for him just to have him on a 1-year rental when you're still, I know we're not technically rebuilding anymore because of how much success we've had early on, but this is still a team that's building towards the future. We're not going to completely mortgage the future success of this team to try to put all of our eggs in one basket and win right now. So you more than likely will try to do whatever it takes to pay him long-term, and that will eat up some cap space, just to warn you. But he is very cheap this year. If you want to go ahead and get him this year, I don't see why not. 3rd-round pick, making less than $9 million, 1,000-yard receiver. Come on, dog. And even if you're looking at his Pro Football Focus grades, he's been one of the better receivers in the entire NFL for a very long time now on a very consistent basis. Like last year, 80.3 overall grade. 2022, 81.2 overall grade. Now this year, a frustrated Amari Cooper, just like Jaycee Horn for the Panthers, lowest grade of his NFL career, I believe. No, outside of 2017, his last full season with the Raiders, we had a 63.6 grade. This year, he has a 63.8 grade through 5 games, and you can just tell he's frustrated. Again, he looks dejected by his body language. He's throwing like his arms around, throwing his head down. Like, why am I even here? Like, why am I putting this blood, sweat, and tears every day, every week to practice, to watch film, to get ready for these games, just for me to go out there and do everything I can to be wide open, and my quarterback can't get me the ball. Imagine what Amari Cooper wants to do with a guy like an elite quarterback that like Jayden Daniels that he just saw front row and center with his own eyes in person. But my point is, now granted, 63.8 grade is not great, but if you go back to just last year, we don't even have to go back to his best year, which is 2019 according to Pro Football Focus with an 84.2 grade. We just go back to last year. Let's just take it back to 2023 before he was extremely frustrated. He had an 80.3 overall grade, which if that were his grade right now this year, that would have him as the 11th best wide receiver out of the entire NFL, only behind Nico Collins, Chris Olave, Chris Godwin, Rashee Rice, Juwan Jennings, Devonta Smith, Justin Jefferson, Drake London, Jamar Chase, and Malik Neighbors. Right ahead of my dog, Ladd McConkey. I love to see the fact that my boy Ladd McConkey is 11th on that list. It's beautiful. But most importantly, again, if Amari Cooper were playing like he did last year, this year, Pro Football Focus would consider him the 11th best wide receiver out of the entire NFL. And let's compare that to our receivers right now. Well, Olamide Zaccheaus is our highest graded receiver with a 72.3. They have him ranked 26th out of all wide receivers in the NFL. Not bad. Terry McLaurin, 27th, right behind him with a 72.2 overall grade. They have him ranked 27th. Noah Brown, 43rd. De'Ami Brown, 60th. And Luke McCaffrey, 84th. And this one, compared to Jaycee Horn, I'm leaning more towards the if it ain't broke, don't fix it category. I'm not going to lie. I'm leaning a little bit more to maybe we need to wait. Even though that third round pick and less than $9 million against the cap is making me say, hey, why not type of thing. But compared to Jaycee Horn, I'm definitely leaning a little bit more to the if it ain't broke, don't fix it category because Terry McLaurin, first of all, is finally having consistent targets and success. Do we want to mess that up? Olamide Zaccheaus is helping a lot right now out of the backfield and as a receiver and hustling down the field, blocking everything. That's why we traded away Jahan Dotson, because he wasn't the guy that wanted to hustle. He wasn't the guy that wanted to block. Olamide Zaccheaus is the perfect embodiment of how you can be a really small guy, just like Jahan Dotson. He may even be smaller than Jahan Dotson, but it's about the attitude and the mentality. That's why Dan Quinn and these guys love him. Then De'Ami Brown is finally getting involved and taking the lid off of defenses for big bombs down the field for touchdowns. Noah Brown was definitively our wide receiver too before he got hurt, and he's been playing well as both a route runner. He has safe hands, and on top of that, a blocker on the outside, allowing our running backs and Jayden Daniels to even score touchdowns with his legs because Noah Brown has been that great at blocking. And then Luke McCaffrey seems to be open every play, on top of the fact that he's arguably our best blocking wide receiver from what I've seen so far this year. And the way that he blocked open that first Brian Robinson touchdown, it wouldn't have been possible without Luke McCaffrey literally blocking that DB. It may have been Grant Delpit or somebody, Greg Newsome, one of those LSU DBs, but he basically blocked them until today. I'm pretty sure, I wouldn't be surprised if he's still blocking them right now. But on top of that, he also seems to be open every single play, but Jaden just hasn't been seeing him most of the time. So there are opportunities right there for Luke McCaffrey to start to get the ball way more than he's been getting it. And then on top of that, Zach Ertz is still a great receiving target, but still hasn't had that dominant game yet, which could possibly still be capable of at least once this season. And we still haven't even featured Ben Sinnott in the passing game yet with his elite athleticism. And you saw in the preseason that it's no way that the first guy's going to tackle him. He is a yak yardage king. And then we also have three really good running backs who also get involved in the passing game. So it's already a lot of mouths to feed, but at the same time, Amari Cooper demanding the other team's best corner to follow him around the field, and the opposing defense's constant attention would only make us better. But that's definitely right now wise though. Like long term, maybe it's questionable because it would definitely stifle the development of a guy like a Luke McCaffrey and the chemistry and trust that he's started to grow with Jayden Daniels. That would definitely halt it a little bit. But then again, if Amari comes in and hoops, I think he still definitely can, then it'll just be up to the other guys that, all right, y'all, just step your games up. Like, you want to get involved, you want to get more targets, how about you play better? I mean, skill issue, if anything. And I know Jayden wouldn't complain about having Amari at all. And just like Jaycee Horn, imagine how much Amari would love to go from those Browns to these Commanders, man. He would probably even take less money to get up out of there at this point, because with Deshaun Watson's contract situation, the Browns have the darkest future, I would say, out of all 32 NFL teams. There will be no money to hand out anytime soon, so they are going to be a bad team for a long time. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. Amari Cooper would love to abandon ship, and just like any great wide receiver in the NFL, play with an elite quarterback that's is going to get them their stats and, most importantly, their money and their contracts based off of the stats that they're putting up. So Jaycee Horn and Amari Cooper, I give thumbs up for both of them, me personally, but I feel like Jaycee Horn makes a little bit more sense. Like if I had to pick between the two, Jaycee Horn helps us out the most, even though he probably will cost you the most money moving forward. But he's also the younger guy, and I feel like we have a bigger DB problem than we have a receiver problem, but we'll see. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, apparently the Philadelphia Eagles just released Devon White literally right before I started recording this video. He has not played in a single game yet this season. Shouts out to Mike Garafolo for this. Devon White's one-year deal with the Eagles will pay him $3.5 million. It obviously wasn't a good fit, and with White being inactive for the first 4 games, a split at this point was considered best by both sides. And so far, he has a 46.1 Pro Football Focus grade from the most recent time he played, which is 2023. Again, he hasn't played at all in 2024. And even when he was playing what I would consider at a pretty good level for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they won that Super Bowl with Tom Brady, he was next to Levante David, I felt like he was playing at a really good level. Pro Football Focus didn't agree. Right now, his highest Pro Football Focus graded year is 2019 with a 51.9. Pro Football Focus feels like he's never, ever been anything better than bad right now. So maybe there's something to that. Shouts out to Ken Lee Platt at MathBomb, the one that puts together the relative athletic scores that you see that we always talk about in the show during the draft season. And I want to just go back to this tweet that he put out in 2022, because he said, let's play spot the trend. Taking a look at all of the players who have 3 sacks or more to start the season, see if you can spot the trend from an athletic standpoint. And if you're looking at it, you have guys like Michael Parsons with a 9.59 relative athletic score, Khalil Mack with a 9.31, Myles Garrett with a 9.99, and there's even more names than that. You have Alex Highsmith, you had Nick Bosa, Aiden Hutchinson. All of these guys have at least a 9 athletic score, except for the Alex Highsmith guy. And to that point, Devon White had a 9.32 relative athletic score coming out of college. This guy is an elite athlete. The only thing holding this grade back even a little bit was his size that was poor, but his explosion, great. Speed, elite. Agility, great. And again, at this certain point in 2022, through the first couple of games of the season, Devon White was the only player with 3 sacks. And to that point, Frankie Louvu is a dominant pass rusher from the inside, technically off-ball linebacker position as well. Dan Quinn knows how to get the most out of guys like that. So imagine if you had Frankie Louvu and Devon White rushing the passer while Bobby Wagner just worries about the run, a little bit of coverage. And then I can't wait to get Jordan McGee back healthy so he can be a great coverage linebacker for us. I see the vision, even though ultimately I don't think it's going to happen at all. I don't think he's on our radar at all, even though he would come extremely cheap. I mean, he hasn't played a game this season, and he's already still getting paid $3.5 million from the Eagles, so he could come here on like a vet minimum and be happy to be a part of what we got going on right now. So if we wanted him, I'm sure he would gladly come here, even if he doesn't even play immediately until he learns the defense. But ultimately, I don't think it's necessarily going to happen, because again, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner have been balling out. Jordan McGee will get back healthy soon to be our great coverage guy. Frankie Louvu's the pass rusher and just the spirit of the defense right now. He's great at run stopping, and he can cover a little bit. Bobby Wagner's your quarterback of the defense, and he's also a great run stopper as well, but not necessarily great in coverage, especially at this point in his career at this age. Jordan McGee, when he comes back healthy, the 5th round rookie, is going to be arguably, I feel like, one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL, just off of pure athleticism and coverage instincts alone. So it seems like we have every part of the linebacker group figured out and covered once Jordan McGee comes back healthy. But I mean, honestly, what would it hurt to give Devon White a vet minimum just to see what happens? But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Make sure you definitely let me know in the comment section. I'm gonna try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible, because I would love to know how y'all feel about these 3 players. Trade for Jaycee Horn, trade for Amari Cooper, or sign Devon White. Let me know in what order you would prioritize. Like, let me know yes or no for all 3. And also, if you happen to say yes for all 3, in what order would you prioritize them? Do you feel like Jaycee Horn is the biggest priority, then Amari Cooper, then Devon White? Or maybe just because you don't have to trade for Devon White and he's coming for very cheap, if we did want him, you could probably get him for like a vet minimum. Maybe he would be your highest priority just off of the fact that it would be a big, high reward, low risk situation. So let me know how you feel about this whole situation. Again, I'm gonna try my best to to read and reply to as many comments as possible. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. I really appreciate y'all. Do not leave this video without stiff arming that like button, and I am working on a video immediately after this one that's going to come out to y'all tonight, because again, I'm trying to put out at least 2 videos a day for all of y'all. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you're always coming back to the Street Scores channel and refreshing and everything. Catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.